Thank you for joining us. We're joined and had a meeting with a wide array of immigration advocates and community leaders. Two of them are here, the mayors of Newark and Jersey City, who have proactively engaged in, I believe, a courageous leadership on behalf of their communities to continue to protect all of their citizens, regardless of their status. And the leader of the ACLU here in our state, and of course, Senator Booker. What we heard is a chorus of voices of fear on behalf of the people that they serve every day. These are immigration advocates who have, for years, I've worked with, who have been trying to achieve the goal of comprehensive immigration reform so that we could find a way to fix our broken immigration system and ultimately create a pathway for people to earn their status in this country. But now they are in the midst of a totally different paradigm and a totally different challenge. And so what we find is that President Trump's orders here defy who we are as a nation. This nation was founded on those fleeing persecution, religious persecution at the time, and coming to the to what then was the New World and the New Land, and ultimately began the incipiency of founding a country that has had a long history of understanding that we are a beacon of light to the rest of the world, and that the greatest experiment in the history of mankind, which is the United States of America, that has brought people from different walks of life, from different parts of the world, and enriched us as a nation. We also understand that there are blemishes, scars on that history, like when we turned Jews away at the height of what was going on in Europe and in the Holocaust. And so we remind ourselves of a history of how we were created and what we've been and when we went wrong to understand how wrong this is now. To ultimately say to individuals who are permanent residents of the United States, and as someone who has worked in immigration the better part of his congressional career, I can tell you a permanent resident is one step away from their path to becoming a citizen. They already have gone through enormous processes to become a permanent resident. To say to them that they cannot return to what is their country is pretty outrageous. Or to listen to one of our mayors say that, who is a U.S. citizen, obviously is the mayor of one of our communities, say, I can't go with my wife to visit her family because she is a permanent resident, and I'm afraid she cannot come back in. Amazing. Or to say to those who fought with us, alongside with us, like Iraqi interpreters, who stood with the men and women in the uniform of the United States and helped us and helped our people navigate critical moments through the use of their language and the use of their relationships, and now to turn our back on those interpreters whose lives are at risk not to be able to come to the United States? Well, that defies the national security interest of the United States because it sends a global message. Don't join the Americans in some foreign land that we may be fighting in, because at the end of the day, they'll turn their back on you. Is that the message we want to send in the world? And so we are going to do everything that we can legislatively to try to defund some of the efforts of the executive orders, to push back on legislation against elements of the executive order, to have our communities rise up and speak up. And I think you're going to see an intersectionalism like we've never seen before on the question of immigration in our country. Because from different walks of life, we heard today about people who feel compelled that they must do something to stop the incredible actions of this administration. I've never seen, in all of my years on working on immigration and immigration reform, a moment of such fear and also, however, of such absolute commitment to fight back, to push back, and we are going to find every way to do that. Legislatively, I invite, as I invited in the meeting, those who have challenges and live in our state to seek out our office. We have a very proactive, have had for years, a very proactive immigration department. My chief counsel in Washington is an immigration lawyer. Our staff here in Newark is very engaged all the time. We will stand with individuals who ultimately face an immediate challenge as we fight the bigger picture of where the president wants to take this country, which is definitely in the wrong direction. Last point I'll make, not in the national security interests of the United States. I've sat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and the House Foreign Relations Committee for 25 years. It is not in the national security interests of the United States to have other countries feel that we are barring them at the end of the day when we need to engage them, when we need to make sure that ISIS does not have the propaganda tool that America has turned its fight not against terrorism, but in the context of religion. You're giving them an enormous propaganda tool. We cannot afford that. We cannot afford that as a nation.